What's up, my Bluefew? How are we doing today? Um, Today's video is going to be just a bit different because sadly, when I recorded this video and two others, the audio on them were just not great. So what I've decided to do is I'm still going to release them, but I'm going to do a bit of a voiceover situation where I just add in clips to emphasize what I'm saying. And that's just what we're gonna go with because I don't really want to lose. Like, I don't want you to be like, oh, Penguin episode 5 and episode 7. Forget about 6, right? So I didn't really want to do that. So I thought we would just talk about it, my feelings on some of the major scenes that happen in this episode. And of course, I'll have like kind of videos to emphasize what I'm saying so you guys can see. But that's how this one's gonna go. This one, and then I've got a Smallville one that's gonna happen, and then next week we'll have a Superman and Lois. So yeah, that is the goal. So let's start with what happens in the beginning, which is in the beginning we start in the underground with Oz and Vic talking about how the Bliss operation is going really good. They've got mushrooms growing super well. They've got a whole crew down there. They're trying to get the electricity back up down in the underground part because right now they're all working on generators. And that's kind of like what's going on down in the underground area. The power thing is kind of like the electricity in PowerPoint is a huge kind of thing in this episode going forward with Oz. So after that happens, or I guess after or like at the same time as like they're having that conversation, Sophie and Sal are also having a bit of a conversation about what they're gonna do about this Oz problem they're having. Um, and actually, during this conversation, they have a very emotional moment, where Sal has like made them dinner, and it's his mother's family's recipe, and he's talking about how his son used to eat it with yogurt, and and Sal gets a little emotional, and it's a really sweet moment. It kind of it really paints you like against Oz a little bit in a way. So that happens. Um, and after that, we immediately kind of go to Sophie and Sal, going to Oz's old place, trying to look for any kind of anything where they could be, what's going on. And that is where Sophie finds a picture of Eve, um, which is Oz's lady friend. Sorry if my voice. I usually don't talk too much in these videos that I do. I just do comments and I'm doing like a full monologue here. Um, so Oz, is lady friend Eve. She finds that picture and she's like, "Ooh, we got him right." But we have to wait because the power, the power. So back at the apartment that they're staying at, Francis and all that, he just can't get the power going. It keeps messing up and fucking up, and Francis is like, "You're gonna keep me in the cold," and she's complaining and all that. Of course, she's older, and yeah. So Oz goes and threatens the councilman that he had tried to threaten in the very first episode, I think, with like a picture and like something about adultery, I believe. And he gets the guy to turn the power on back at Crown Point, right? So, heck yeah. Um, then Sophie goes, "Oh, there is a few things going on with Vic and Squid, which used to be like a gang leader back before Crown Point was flooded. And the whole big thing with that is that, like, Squid wants to be a part of whatever's happening with Oz. And for some reason, Vic doesn't want this, which I don't understand because, like, Oz is working with a bunch of people. And I guess it's just because, like, I think it's more Vic doesn't want to work with Squid because his father never approved of Squid, I'm gonna assume is why he's so against it. But, yeah, I'm gonna assume that's what's happening there. There's also a bit happening. I can't remember if it's before or after Sophie talks to Eve, but I think it might be before, where Oz comes home and finds that Francis has been like in the tub freezing for hours, and during this whole time, like, Francis asks him, like, you know, if I lose myself, I'm no longer who I used to be or who I am now. I want you to do it. I want you to kill me. I want you to end it. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to be some drooling, empty woman, right? And makes Francis kind of makes Oz promise that he will, you know, kill her if her disease fully takes over. And it's a really sad moment for Oz, because you can tell how much Oz really loves his mother. Um, and then we go to Sophie talking to Eve. And this is, I'll probably show more like video of this part, because it was really beautifully done between, like, Eve knows she's gonna die. Like, Eve has no question about that. She knows Sophie shows up, I'm dying, and she goes, I want you to make me a promise that you won't hurt my girls. Because they have such a strong relationship, you know, when you're out on the streets like that. She's like, all you have are your girls to depend on. You can't really depend on anybody else. And it's a really beautiful moment. And Sophie goes, did Oz ever tell you that I'm not the hangman? And, like, this, like, really surprises Eve, because Eve always thought that, like, Sophie was the hangman and all this stuff. And because of that, and, like, Sophie sees the connection she has with her girls, and she's like, I'm not gonna have someone lose who is what I would say a safety figure for these women, I guess. So Sophie decides to not kill Eve, and for that, Eve goes Crown Point, and she kind of gives the information that that's where Oz would be, is probably around Crown Point, right? So that's a big conversation. It's really beautiful. It actually, it's almost, I think it's like 12 minutes or so. It's a long conversation. It's really well done. Um, then, let me make sure I've got this right, because I want to make sure I'm doing it all right. After that, Vic meets back up with Squid, and Squid's like, so would your boss say, am I part of the gang? Am I gonna be, you know, let me sell it right that? And, like, Vic's like, no, like, you know, we don't really need anybody right now. He's like trying to pull that, and Squid's like, you're gonna fucking bring me to your boss and all this stuff. And Vic just kills him. And, like, it's really kind of heartbreaking to watch, because, like, Vic's like, why'd you make me do that? Why'd you make me do that? And he's, like, crying, and it's super emotional and, like, heartbreaking to watch, like, Vic become, I feel, the person his father never wanted him to be. And it's through Squid, which is such a good, like, thing, because he didn't want him hanging out with Squid because Squid was such a bad person. But in killing Squid, he's become the person his father never wanted to. It's a really beautiful moment. Not beautiful, but, like, it's great storytelling, I guess is what I mean to say. So that happens, and then Oz talks to the other, like, small gangs of Gotham, I guess, and he's, like, having this really big speech about how, you know, he's from Crown Point. He's from one of the smaller. He's not a part of the family. He was never given the silver spoon. And he makes, like, a comparison between, like, what's the difference between the family, like Sophie and Sal, and what the councilmen do, you know? They're making deals behind, you know, doors just the same, and, you know, does that, and he gets them, you know, all riled up, and they're, like, on his side, and it's a big thing. And, like, it's a really good speech. It's probably what I'm gonna play the scene for, because I think it's a really good speech that he gives that convinces them to join him in kind of going against Sal and Sophie. So that happens. Then, the very end, after, you know, Oz has had this big win and everything's kind of going good for him again, the power gets turned back on. And Francis and Vic are dancing, and he's like, Oz did this, Oz got the power back on, and, like, they're dancing to the music, and it's a really kind of happy moment for them. And then, you know, the camera pulls back, and it pulls back, and then you see like a tire iron, or like it might have been a crowbar. It was a tire iron or crowbar, and like the camera pans up, and it's Sophie, and it just ends like that. It's such a beautiful like ending for the episode. But yeah, that is that's episode 6, which I'll have to put the name in post because I can't remember the name of this episode, sadly. But it was really good. I think it was more of it was another one of those build 'em up episodes, right? Like that's kind of how it would go, how it's been going. Is each episode is a build it up, let it fall. So this is kind of a building it up, and next episode is definitely a letting it fall situation because I've watched that episode and it is definitely a let it fall situation. Next episode is kind of crazy. But that's not why we're here today. We're here today to talk about episode 6. So, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed all of the aspects. I loved Francis, and like there's these really good moments between Francis and Vic where like Francis will kind of go back and she'll, she'll say her other son's names or something like that, and Oz will be like, he kind of almost gets angry when she mentions his brothers, and he's like, no ma, it's Oz, like he doesn't want her going back into the old times like that, whereas Vic will kind of be like, they're coming home soon, like he'll try and play into it so it doesn't stress her out, because it's not really good to stress out someone who's having one of those mental lapses at the time. And Oz gets really upset, and like I think it's a really good picture of like how Vic is spending more time with Oz's mother and kind of knows what she needs at that time. I think that's a really good part of the episode too that I really don't go hard into, but like it's happening. But yeah, really good episode. I'm sorry this is not the normal kind of video. It's not really a react. It's me just kind of talking about my feelings and thoughts on it. But I hope everyone has a great and lovely day. Please don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button. Hit me down in the comments and tell me what you did or didn't like about this episode. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.